Alright guys, so we are back in the car, and today we are celebrating a pretty big milestone. As of today, I have officially owned this car for 5 years. So it's pretty exciting. I just wanted to celebrate by cruising around. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about my experience with the car, how I got it, and just kind of what my thoughts are as far as what's coming next. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Also, for anybody that's new to the channel, I create videos related to the latest updates in our community, and I discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in videos like that, be sure to subscribe. There will be a lot more coming out in the future. So like I said, I've owned my 440i for 5 years now. A little bit about how I got it. So I actually was fortunate enough to buy the car brand new. I placed an order back in April of 2017. It took a couple months for me to actually get a production number, which actually worked out in my favor because I was able to add in the digital cluster at the last minute. That option was $350, so compared to the price a lot of you guys are paying for it in the aftermarket, I'm very fortunate. I know I've seen it go for like $1,000 plus coding and everything else. Anyway, after the car was built, it took a couple months for it to be delivered. I picked it up in South Carolina at the Performance Center and did the Performance Center delivery. Again, highly recommend it, no regrets there. I think it's a great opportunity for anybody buying a new car, and since this was my first new car, I just wanted the full experience. So I did that, and it was awesome to, beat up on a car that's similar to yours, go around their little autocross track. They walk you around the plant, do a tour around the track. You drive with one of their drivers in an M3, and then I drove the car home. Now the spec on my car is actually pretty simple. So it's a 2018 440i. It has a 6-speed manual transmission and rear-wheel drive. It has black sapphire metallic paint, black interior, and the only packages I got were the M Sport package, the executive package, and then, like I said, I also got the digital cluster added in last minute. So I do not have the track handling package on this car. So far, my experience has been really good. I have had a couple issues with the car. The first one actually arose because I was reading some forums about the B58 and people were talking about coolant loss issues. And so I just went ahead and checked my coolant tank to kind of get a baseline for where my coolant levels were. And surprise, but at 2,000 miles, it was completely empty. And it took a while for me to actually get my dealership to cover that under warranty. They didn't want to, and eventually I talked to the service manager and he gave me a new reservoir cap underneath their goodwill policy, and that worked and fixed my problem. So I'm definitely not worried about their warranty with how hard it was to get that covered. That's when I decided to just modify my car anyway, but I'm happy that I was able to fix it and it hasn't had any coolant loss issues since. After I started modifying my car, I obviously went with a bigger turbo, upgraded clutch, and a bunch of supporting mods. I've had a couple issues that I kind of caused myself from aftermarket modifications. I would say the only thing that was caused by a BMW design issue was the strut issue that I posted a video about a couple weeks ago. And basically my strut punched through the knuckle when I hit a really big pothole. Unfortunately, that's kind of a design flaw, and you could potentially have that happen if you have a 1, 2, 3, or 4 series with the same suspension design. For me, it was pretty cheap to fix. I bought a knuckle from eBay for like $100, replaced it, and now I'm back on the road. So I know there are kind of like two different camps when it comes to the B58. Some people think that it's just like this hidden secret, it's bulletproof and can run 1,000 horsepower without doing anything. And other people act like there's some big conspiracy and people like me are trying to hide deficiencies in the B58. I mean, that's not really the case. I do feel like, again, being that I could buy this car brand new, I did everything to it myself and I know the full history. That helped me out a lot. But I think in general, the B58 is just a great platform. Even though it does have problems from time to time, it's easy to maintain, easy to modify, relatively cheap to work on. So I think that it's kind of one of the best German cars out there, especially for a new enthusiast. I also haven't had any injector issues. I haven't had any issues with my PCV, and I have deleted the PCV diaphragm now, so I don't really have to worry about that at all in the future. But for injectors, I'm just kind of keeping an eye on my car if that does potentially become a problem. I've had injector issues in the past on a previous car, and it was pretty noticeable with misfires and stuff. So I feel like as long as I am paying attention to my car, keeping up with maintenance, I don't really anticipate that being an issue. Now let's talk about what's next, because me saying that I've had the car for 5 years, I'm done building it, you know, it's at a happy spot. It's between 600 and 650 horsepower, which really is the sweet spot for the B58 in my opinion. And now what's next? Well, most people think that I'm going to be getting into another car, and honestly, I don't plan on it. I know it's kind of a flex nowadays, and people say they've had 20 cars by the time they're 16. I'm not really like that. I tend to basically drive my cars until they're dead. I don't expect this car to be any different, so I hope to have it at least another 5 years, if not more. Other cars I could have considered would be like an S55 car. I really don't like how they sound, and I'm not a fan of how they look, just personal preference. So that really wasn't something that I ever honestly considered. An S58 car would probably be a nice upgrade performance-wise and sound-wise, but I don't like any of the S58 cars right now either. The M3 and M4 really don't look good. I would prefer a coupe if anything, and honestly I think that the M2 will be the S58 car to have, but we're still kind of waiting to see what that car is going to look like. I think another car I might have considered would have been like a manual A90. A lot of people were saying, am I going to put my money where my mouth is? I'm always talking about save the manuals. Am I going to go buy a manual A90 now that it's available? But my problem is I need the rear seats, so it doesn't really make sense for me to get a car that's a two-seater when I put the kids in the back seat of this car. We go to car shows, go on small road trips and things like that. So it wouldn't really make sense for me to get a two-seater and lose that functionality. So even though I think that would probably be the best performing car out of the ones I would consider, that's just not really something that would meet my need. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think the experience has been great. I don't really have any regrets with the car. I know a lot of people are like, oh, if you got an automatic, it would have been faster. If you got an all-wheel drive, you would have had more traction. And none of that really bothers me. You know, I definitely just recommend people decide what their priorities are and pick a car based on that, because nobody can tell you what your focus should be when you buy a car. If anything, you're going to know that better than anyone else. And when you get a car, you can enjoy it for what it is. Everything's going to have pros and cons. For me, I got this car specifically because it's an extra car. I want to have fun with it. I have one set of wheels and tires. The tires are some pretty aggressive summer tires. And if the conditions outside aren't good for that, then it's probably not the kind of conditions I bought this car for. But if you need a car that can do everything and drive every single day of the year in any kind of weather, you know, of course, X-Drive is better. If you're always in a lot of heavy stop and go traffic, or you have other people that you need to be able to drive your car and they can't drive manual, of course you can get an automatic. You know, enjoy the car for what it is based on your purpose. Don't worry about what other people are doing, because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one that needs to enjoy it. And if somebody's worried about, you know, a 10-second race or whatever, that's going to be done and over with, and the other 99% of the time, you're the one that has to live with the car. So yeah, definitely just take your time if you're looking at buying a B58. Spend a little extra time to make sure it has the options you have. A lot of stuff in the BMW world, it's almost more expensive to retrofit OEM parts than upgrading the aftermarket stuff for whatever reason. So thankfully I got this car pretty much the way that I wanted, and I didn't feel the need to like modify the interior and the bumpers and all of that stuff. I pretty much could just enjoy it out of the box. I'm going to be releasing a lot of other videos because I know you guys are curious about all the parts that I have on my car, how much it costs to build, and I've been meaning to push those out earlier, but I'm really going to try to make sure I get some of those videos out before the end of the year. So hopefully I can answer some of your other questions about my car and my experience and the different choices I made as far as modifying it, or even just the options that I picked when I bought it. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different options out there now, and so many ways you can modify and personalize a car. It was very different from when I first got it, you know. So I definitely recommend just taking your time, opening up your search. You know, don't necessarily get stuck in your city or even in your state. There are a lot of options to find really good deals on well-built cars, well-spec'd cars all over. Just be patient and you'll find what you want. And as always, be careful if you're buying a car that lived in New York. So yeah, I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below. Yeah, I can't regret that. There's no way I'm regretting this.